Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Raquel's Fake Health-Related Podcast. The topic of today's podcast is a bit of a hot-button issue, and that is the COVID-19 vaccine. Specifically, we're going to talk about hesitancy towards the COVID-19 vaccine. This is actually a subject that I've been interested in since the COVID vaccine's development. The midst of the pandemic was an isolating time, and admittedly, my experience here in Idaho was a lot different than what my friends and family experienced in California. According to social media, the COVID vaccine was a gift from science and a sure way to loosen the grip this disease has on the world. Yet face-to-face, I was receiving a very different response to the vaccine's availability. As a travel CNA, I work in a lot of nursing facilities in the Treasure Valley and interact with many healthcare professionals on a regular basis. After the first vaccines for the coronavirus were released, I was shocked by the overwhelmingly negative reaction being shared by nurses and administrators alike. This atmosphere of disapproval was exacerbated when the vaccine mandates began to go into place. If anyone thought finding nursing staff was difficult before and during the pandemic, it became a losing battle once nurses started quitting their jobs rather than becoming vaccinated. The reasoning behind this mass exodus from the nursing field was mind-boggling to me. I could perhaps venture to guess why a layperson would be hesitant towards a new vaccine, but a healthcare professional that weathered the start of the pandemic, prepared to abandon their post when health has arrived, is what inspired me to look further into this topic. So then, why are Americans hesitant towards the COVID-19 vaccine? Let's start by taking a look at the anti-vaxxer presence in America. Hesitancy towards vaccines has been a common trend in the United States long before the coronavirus pandemic. In an article on Penn Today called "The Controversy Surrounding Vaccines, Then and Now," Robert Arnowitz, a professor of social sciences that conducts research on vaccines, states, quote, "Every vaccine has a unique history. How the public reacts to a vaccine is based on the target condition it's treating, the concerns and fears that are raised, and the era in which it comes up. No vaccine story is the same." End quote. For instance, in 2019, the MMR vaccine that protects against measles faced its own controversy when it was believed that the vaccine caused autism. Given the history of tumultuous feelings towards vaccines in America, it is no surprise that the COVID-19 vaccine has been associated with controversy. Resistance to vaccines and the refusal to have children immunized prior to school admission has contributed to the growth of anti-vaxxer communities. These groups have gained popularity in America since the introduction of the COVID-19 vaccine, with supporters often utilizing protests to voice their concerns. A news broadcast on The Guardian by Adam Gabbett called "Why U.S. Anti-Vaxxers Will Refuse the Coronavirus Vaccine" investigates the beliefs of anti-vaxxers in America. In this video, Dr. Judy Mikovits, a prominent speaker against vaccines, is shown at a protest stating, quote, "The pharmaceutical companies are giving a free ride at injecting toxins into your children without a single safety study," end quote. Claims about the safety and side effects of vaccines, as well as conspiracy theories, are often the talking points used by anti-vaxxers to deter others from becoming vaccinated. In the 2020 documentary Plandemic, which has since been removed from most platforms, Dr. Judy Mikovits asserts that the coronavirus pandemic is a global conspiracy and that the SARS-CoV-2 virus was created in a lab. Statements like these encourage an atmosphere of skepticism surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine. Another reason behind vaccine hesitancy I discovered during my research are health and safety concerns. The safety and side effects of the COVID-19 vaccine have been of great concern to many since it was first released in December of 2020. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine has a 91% effective, and common side effects include pain, redness, and swelling at the injection site, as well as fatigue, headache, muscle or joint pains, chills, and fever. These side effects are also associated with other vaccines, such as the one for influenza. In addition to these minor side effects, the FDA mentions conducting, quote, "a rigorous evaluation of post-authorization safety surveillance data pertaining to myocarditis and pericarditis following administration of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, and has determined that the data demonstrate increased risks, particularly within 7 days following the second dose, end quote. Furthermore, because the vaccine is relatively new, the FDA adds, quote, information is not yet available about potential long-term health outcomes, end quote. According to the Center for Disease Control, myocarditis and pericarditis can both be described as swelling of the heart and result in symptoms of chest pain and shortness of breath. Although government agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration and the Center for Disease Control both declare these vaccines safe and effective, taking these potential side effects into account is a necessary step to making an informed decision about one's own health. An article by Eric Berger on U.S. News, titled, With Vaccine Mandate Looming, Nursing Homes Face More Staffing Problems, discusses how vaccine mandates have induced staffing shortages within nursing homes. Berger includes a quote addressing one person's health concerns surrounding the vaccines. Quote, Smith, the nurse who works for the healthcare staffing agency, said she has not been vaccinated against COVID because she had a rare cancer in 2017 and is now, quote, very particular about what I put in my body, end quote. Given the lack of information regarding long-term health outcomes of the COVID-19 vaccine and the side effects that have been established, it makes sense for some to be hesitant towards the vaccine. The next factor behind vaccine hesitancy is the perceived severity of the disease. As previously indicated, the coronavirus can result in a variety of symptoms ranging from mild to severe. A classmate described what having COVID was like to me, stating, quote, it's like nothing more than a cold, end quote. As a healthcare worker, however, I know that not everyone is as lucky to have this same experience. Working on a COVID unit, I have seen patients struggle to breathe due to the complications of their condition. Beyond the physical pain, a COVID unit amid the pandemic was a sad place void of visitors. Patients in a COVID unit cannot see your smiling face due to the respirator and face shield. Without having witnessed people truly suffer from the coronavirus, it has become believed by some that being infected with COVID-19 is not a big deal. In a study called Risk Exposures, Risk Perceptions, Negative Attitudes Towards General Vaccination, and COVID-19 Vaccine Acceptance Among College Students in South Carolina, describes the results of a study that was performed to explore the impact of certain factors on COVID-19 vaccine acceptance. The factors that were used to measure the likelihood of vaccine acceptance were risk of exposure, perceived susceptibility, perceived severity of COVID-19, and the attitude towards vaccines in general. The authors conclude that, quote, higher perceived severity is associated with higher vaccine acceptance, which is consistent with the evidence that perceived severity could increase the willingness to vaccinate against COVID-19 across age groups. Meaning, the fact that some Americans associate having the coronavirus with, quote, nothing more than a cold influences how likely they are to become vaccinated against it. The authors of this study add that vaccine resistance due to perceived severity, quote, may be attributed to the unrealistic optimism in college students who are not reviewing the virus as a serious threat, end quote. In support of that optimism, one might cite the Center for Disease Control's statement that, quote, older adults and people who have certain underlying medical conditions are at increased risk for severe illness from COVID-19, end quote, and not find it necessary to become vaccinated. Now let's talk about the vaccine mandates. The implementation of COVID-19 vaccine mandates is a point of contention amongst those that refuse the vaccine. Likely fueled by conspiratorial thinking and the desire for autonomy, many find that employer vaccine mandates infringe on their basic human rights. An article called COVID-19 Vaccine Mandates at the Supreme Court, Scope and Limits of the Federal Authority, details two recent court rulings that uphold vaccine or test mandates imposed by the Occupational Health and Safety Administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Safety. The author accounts the reaction towards a ruling in Missouri that mandates COVID-19 vaccinations for all healthcare workers in institutions that receive federal funding. Quote, regarding the HHS rule, some deemed the decision a slapdash expansion of the HHS's authority that inappropriately grants the agency the ability to issue a national vaccine mandate, while others applaud the ruling as scientifically sound judgment that fits squarely within HHS's authority and will unquestionably protect the health and safety of Medicare and Medicaid patients. This split decision on the ruling is indicative of overall feelings on vaccine mandates. Some feel they are necessary to protect public health, while others see it as an institutional intrusion. The idea of a government agency having the influence over an individual's health-related decision is enough to put some Americans on high alert. Like I said earlier, I've seen more than a few nurses leave their jobs and even the field entirely due to similar local requirements. To sum all this research up, it seems like health concerns such as safety and side effects, perceived severity of the coronavirus, as well as the implementation of mandates associated with the COVID-19 vaccine are the reasons behind vaccine hesitancy in America. According to Our World in Data, a website that uses the most recent official numbers from governments and health administrations to report vaccine rates, states that only 67% of Americans are fully vaccinated as of June 2022. Based on research conducted to determine why Americans are hesitant towards the COVID-19 vaccine, rare but serious conditions such as myocarditis and pericarditis are side effects to be cautious about. With the vaccine only recently being developed and there being uncertainty surrounding the long-term repercussions, it could be considered foolhardy to trust this treatment completely without regard to one's individual health. Furthermore, it appears that trust in the American government and creators of the vaccine, fueled by conspiracy theories, are also the center of why there is hesitancy towards the COVID-19 vaccine. Vocal anti-vaxxer groups and activists such as Judy Mikovits have committed themselves to spreading their claims on why they believe the vaccine should not be trusted, regardless of evidence supporting such claims. Although it has become common today to dismiss a belief that is not aligned with your own, it is important to consider the concerns and motivations of others and appreciate shared similarities in the pursuit of health and well-being. With that being said, I will end the first and only episode of Raquel's Fake Health-Related Podcast for English class. Thank you for listening.